Good morning. It's Friday. The weekend is back, but more importantly, Premier League football is back. Hello, good morning. It's Friday. The weekend is here, but more importantly, Premier League football is back. The international break is over, and Arsenal, of course, return to action on Sunday afternoon, 4:30 p.m. The Gunners take on Watford at Vicarage Road. Really looking forward, of course, to seeing Arsenal back in action. We brought you a preview show yesterday, which you can find on our YouTube channel. It'll be available in podcast format by the time I finish this stream. So you'll be able to listen to Andy Lewis, Watford broadcaster, fan, and writer over at the Hornets Nest, who will be giving us some insight, who did provide us some insight into the psyche at Watford Football Club at the moment, into what's gone on there with the change of manager, how that all came about, what we can expect from Watford going forward. So please do check that out. It's very insightful, very useful. And the reason for this podcast, this live podcast, as most of ours are these days, is for me to share with you guys what I would pick as my starting 11. Now, of course, this is being put out before Unai Emery's press conference, so there may be some changes to that depending on what news Unai Emery delivers when he does sit down in front of the press. But I thought I'd give you my starting 11 anyway, based on what we know now. I'll see how it goes. Perhaps in the future we'll do this after the press conferences, but it's a new bit of content, a new idea. So we're going to be following through on this for the next few weeks and seeing how, of course, you guys like it. Now, Arsenal, of course, received a boost yesterday. Now, we touched on the Ainsley Maitland-Niles contract, but we didn't touch on this. Kieran Tierney and Hector Bellerin are back with the Arsenal group, which is, of course, fantastic news. But they're, of course, not ready to play this weekend. And I've heard some people talking about Holding coming back in there as well this weekend. It's come way too soon for them. And I wouldn't want them to play this weekend because you wouldn't want their recoveries to suffer another setback. These guys have been out for a long time. It's not easy to recover from an injury like this, of course, both mentally and physically. God, I sound like Arsene Wenger there, don't I? Mentally, physically focused. Bloody hell. But anyway, what I was saying was you don't want to see either of those, or any of those three, I should say, back in the side this weekend. It's a great boost that they're back and that they're around the corner. And of course, we've got Aston Villa at home next weekend, so maybe we'll get a couple of those available for that. We've got a cup game in the week too, a Europa League game, and then the week after that we've got that Nottingham Forest game. Or have I got that the wrong way around? I think I've got it the right way around. But there's plenty of games for these guys to regain their fitness, and so there's no rush in my opinion. Now I'm going to share with you guys on the screen my starting 11 that I've gone for. Here it is. Bernd Leno in goal. I think that's a no-brainer. Picks himself, doesn't he? Number one goalkeeper at Arsenal, quite clearly. And then I've gone with Ainsley Maitland-Niles at right back, a back two, or the central defensive pairing of Sokratis and David Luiz, with Sead Kolasinac at left back. I think that you'll see minimal changes in that. People have spoken about Callum Chambers coming into the side. I'm not dead against that, but I'm basing it partly on what I think Unai Emery will do and partly what I'd like him to do. And I think at some point you need to try and stick with a pair and try and develop some sort of understanding between the players. And I know that when Rob Holding comes back and is ready to slot back in the side, a lot of people will be calling for him to be in the starting 11, and understandably so. But I guess the point I'm making is that he's not ready yet. So you should stick with Luiz and Sokratis, in my opinion. I don't think Callum Chambers brings anything more to the table than those two. Don't get me wrong. David Luiz has got, errors in him. Sokratis hasn't been too good at the start of this season, in my opinion. And, he wasn't even that good last season, if I'm being honest. I think that people overstated his performances purely because he's the type of player that fist pumps the crowd and things like that. So, yeah, I mean... that's what I'd go for across the back. So Kolasinac, Luiz, Sokratis, Ainsley, Maitland-Niles. Now in the centre of midfield, lots of you are going to be screaming at me for this, but I have put Granit Xhaka in there. And again, like I said, this is partly the lineup I'd go with and partly what I think Unai Emery will go with. And I don't see Unai Emery dropping Granit Xhaka. Granit Xhaka has been a mainstay in Unai Emery's team. Whenever he's fit, he plays. And I expect him to once again be in that side. So I think Granit Xhaka will start alongside Matteo Guendouzi. His performance against Spurs was so good, particularly in the second half, that I think it's impossible for him to be dropped. I didn't think Torreira was great that day, and I think he'll miss out as a result. In that sort of number 10-ish role, because I'm dead against the flat three in midfield. I didn't think it worked against Spurs. I've gone with Dani Ceballos. I think Dani Ceballos gives you a bit of everything. He works quite hard. He's got lots of technical ability, able to turn and take on players. And I think he's got that vision, as we saw with his pre-assist for Spain just a few days ago, that he can pick out a killer pass as well. And with those three up top, you feel like, Dani Ceballos is probably the best suited to the job. I'd like to see Mesut Ozil come back in the side, but I think given the fact he's been out and he's not featured in the first team and he's not started a game yet, I find it very hard to believe that Unai Emery would just throw him in. I think you'll see Ozil maybe start in the Europa League, and that will probably be his way of getting back into the team and easing, or Unai Emery easing him back into the starting 11. Now, our front three is, of course, Pepe, Lacazette, and Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. I don't like Aubameyang playing from the left. I've said it time and time again. But at this moment in time, I don't see how else you can fit him and Lacazette in the side without switching the rest of the formation. And I think that Unai Emery's shown that he's not really willing to do that. He wants a trio in midfield, and he wants Aubameyang to operate from that left-hand side. Now, I like the fact that Aubameyang can cut inside, and he does still score goals, etc., etc. And, he's not been terrible there. But I just think that during pre-season, I quite liked Aubameyang. If he was going to play on a flank, I quite liked him on the right-hand side. But Pepe is one of those players who likes to cut inside. Aubameyang likes to cut inside. And often that makes us easy to defend against. It means our attack is pretty narrow. But then on the other hand, it does open up space for Ainsley Maitland-Niles and Kolasinac to get forward and to make those overlaps. And then they have space to operate, which I'm fine with as long as the rest of the team protects those areas, because I thought against Spurs at times those areas were really, really weak. And we ended up seeing the likes of Xhaka and Guendouzi being pulled out right and left, and it was just causing us all sorts of problems. So I don't really want to see those two getting forward as much, but I think with the nature of the way Unai Emery sets up this front three, you don't really have a choice. I think that Pepe's going to cut inside. Aubameyang's going to cut inside. Maybe swap them for a little bit. And they did swap sort of momentarily in the North London derby, but not for any sustained period of time. So I'd like to see a little bit more rotation in that front three. It's a very fluid front three. You could argue that any of them could play in that centre forward role, and any of them would be okay sort of in that inverted striker role as well, wide striker role, whatever you want to call it. So that's kind of what I'd go with. Now, of course, this could all change based on what Unai Emery says in his press conference, but based on what we know at this moment in time, that is what I'd go for. So just to run through that one more time: Leno in goal, Ainsley Maitland-Niles, Socrates, David Luiz, and Kolasinac across the back line. Xhaka and Guendouzi in the middle of the park, with Dani Ceballos slightly ahead of them. Aubameyang on the left, Pepe on the right, and Alexander Lacazette through the middle. Now, let's revert over to some of your comments as well. Big thank you to those of you tuned in live, and of course to those who will listen back on the audio. A big hello to all of you. Let's have a look at some of the comments. Kyle Caruso, Harry the Legend, thank you very much, my friend, and welcome to the show. He says, Chambers instead of Xhaka. Chambers in the middle of the park. I'm not so sure about that. It's not what I would do. But, he's proven that he can play there in the past. Mike Stavru says hello. Or he says hello in Greek, basically. Village Greek, like the absolute villager that he is. How you doing, Mike? Kyle also says Liverpool's front three is the blueprint. Raymond says it saves us the pressure of fighting for a draw by starting Lucas Torreira. Let's forget that nonsense called Xhaka. Mike says, I think we should trial Torreira as the deepest lying midfielder. Isn't that what we bought him for? I agree, Mike. But I think that his performance against Spurs was poor. And I know he wasn't playing in that role. He was playing sort of as one of a midfield three, a flat three. But I don't think you'll see him start this weekend. And as I keep saying, this lineup is partly what I would like to see, but partly what I think Unai Emery will go for. And I expect Unai Emery to stick with Granit Xhaka. I think it's impossible to drop Guendouzi after the way he played against Spurs, particularly in that second half. So that's why I've gone with that. Raymond says, why Xhaka? Again, same reasons. I just think that that's what Unai Emery would do. I don't think he'll want to kill the player's confidence by leaving him out. He obviously sees something in Granit Xhaka, some sort of quality that maybe some of us as fans are missing, because he seems to pick him every single week. He's even given him the captain's armband. Callum Ferguson says Willock and Guendouzi. Of course, Willock signed a new deal yesterday, which is great news. But I'm going to keep saying it. I just think that's what Unai Emery will do. And, we'll see on Sunday. But I'm pretty confident that is what Unai Emery will go with. Don't forget, the fans phone-in returns on Tuesday night, 9:30 p.m. UK time. That is, we'll be taking your calls live on air and getting your thoughts on the Watford game and all other Arsenal-related subjects. So feel free to register your interest. All you need to do is DM us at Chronicles_AFC, and we'll get you on the line during the 1 hour show. That brings us to the end of today's live stream, just a short one. And don't forget, this podcast is sponsored by loserpool.com.